I am the general's wife. That night, the general climbed up to my window and said, I've fallen for someone else, let's divorce. I was momentarily stunned, looking at his handsome face and the serious expression in his eyes. Then a genuine smile spread across my face. You little rascal, sneaking around and making big moves. Which girl is it? Why haven't I heard you mention her before? Shu Yunhe smiled, revealing 2 deep dimples. It was love at first sight. I'm telling you right away, aunt. Divorce is fine, but you must sort out my female household rights, I said casually, though a pang of bitterness stirred in my heart. Though I knew this day would come eventually, when it actually arrived, it still stung. Still, I can't quite let go of this good friend in the eyes of the world. General Shu Yunhe and his wife, Zhong Qingyun, were childhood sweethearts, both apprenticed under the same teacher, from comparable family backgrounds, and eventually married in a union celebrated as a model of harmony. After their marriage, they lived in perfect accord, and Shu Yunhe even refused to take concubines, becoming a widely praised example in every street and alley. In reality, both of them were transmigrated souls, having grown up together since childhood. Ever since she learned that Shu Yunhe would take concubines in the future, Zhong Qingyun's faint, uncertain feelings had long been crushed. When it came time to discuss marriage, Zhong Qingyun didn't want to waste her youth in the inner courtyard, so she discussed a fake marriage with Shu Yunhe. Who would have thought that in less than a year, they would be on the verge of divorce? I sighed. Starting tomorrow, my dear parents would begin to suffer. Rumors were spreading through every street and alley the next day. I unusually didn't sleep in and got dressed properly. Early in the morning, my in-laws called me to the courtyard. I saw Shu Yunhe kneeling stiffly on the ground with his back straight. Father, mother, I've already agreed to the divorce. Please let Shu Yunhe get up, I said firmly, my voice strong and clear, not at all sounding like someone who had been wronged. My in-laws exchanged a glance, and the old general slapped his thigh. Is this scoundrel deceiving you? Do you know that after the divorce, I'll go to the border to find my father and become a female general? I immediately interjected, as I still have a conscience and can't let Shu Yunhe suffer in vain. The old lady glanced at me, seeing that I didn't seem to be joking, and ultimately felt sorry for her son. She pulled the old general aside, and the two of them began to discuss. Shu Yunhe looked at me and gave a thumbs up. I raised an eyebrow and made an okay gesture with my hand. Dad, Mom, please let Yunhe get up. What if his knees get damaged from kneeling for too long? Hearing this, the old lady immediately pulled Shu Yunhe up. The old general looked at me with a hint of guilt in his eyes. It's my Shu family that's in the wrong. I won't have the face to see your father again. I waved my hand dismissively. My father is at the border, and who knows when he'll return. It's normal not to see him. A red fingerprint was left on the divorce document, and from that moment on, we were both free. Shu Yunhe also gave me a household registration and a travel permit, so that in the future, the sky would be high and the sea wide, and I could roam freely. At this moment, the news of our divorce had already spread throughout the streets and alleys, but in people's mouths, it was said that Shu Yunhe was fickle and had taken a new wife, while I was too fierce to allow him to take a concubine, and that was why we divorced. I shook my head, packed my belongings, and exchanged silver for banknotes to make it more convenient for the journey. The weather was clear and pleasant. I heard a noise in the courtyard. I stepped out of the house. The maid beside her was startled at first. Madam, the young general, Shu Yunhe, appeared in my courtyard with an extremely beautiful, slender girl. This girl was clearly Shu Yunhe's type. He had once said that he had been practicing martial arts since childhood and didn't like girls who knew martial arts at all. He wanted to find a gentle and caring girl in the future. Zhong Qingyun, this is the girl I like. Chen Shuang, isn't she beautiful? Shu Yunhe said proudly. Well, a flower stuck in a pile of cow dung. Your wife is decent, she can improve the next generation, I said indifferently, while mentally planning where to find a good horse later, where to eat something outside the mansion tomorrow morning, and how long it had been since I last wandered the streets eating aimlessly. Sister, there's no need to argue with Yunhe over me. Staying in this family, we can all look out for each other. Chen Shuang said softly, yet with a hint of magnanimity. I was taken aback for a moment, then glanced at Shu Yunhe. my eyes conveying, "You like this type, isn't this just a green tea?" "Girl," Xu Yunhe seemed not to understand the look in my eyes and smiled contentedly. "Shuang'er is generous and truly touches my heart." Xu Yunhe took Chen Shuang's hand, his eyes filled with desire more than love. Suddenly, I remembered that at some point in the past, Xu Yunhe was so grateful to have arrived in this era where one could have multiple wives and concubines, and so thankful to have been born into a general's household. "Sister is still here, Yunhe, you." Chen Shuang hesitated, unable to continue. I smiled and turned away, going to the market to select the 3 fastest horses. The next morning, the city gate opened, and 3 men rode out on tall horses. The 2 behind me were Kui Yi, the maid who had grown up with me, and Zhong San, the guard my father had assigned to me. The morning air was filled with a fresh scent, and sunlight filtered through the gaps in the leaves, casting dappled patterns on the ground. Suddenly, I turned around, and on the city gate, that familiar figure waved at me goodbye. Xu Yunhe, traveling with stops and starts, it wasn't so much seeking my father as it was openly enjoying the scenery, eating and drinking along the way. I witnessed the towering, rugged mountains and a tranquil, deep blue lake of this era. I also saw many protected animals I had never seen before. I wanted to write to Xu Yunhe to share all the strange sights in this otherworldly place. We both came from another world, and only he would understand the various precious protected animals I spoke of, not the wild beasts the villagers talked about. Unfortunately, I can't write to him now. I no longer have the right to contact him. However, not long after, I received a letter from Xu Yunhe holding the familiar envelope. I felt no joy, only deep worry. Receiving a letter at this time was certainly not a good sign. I sighed and quickly tore open the envelope. I skimmed through the contents in a glance. "Kui Yi, Zhong San, hurry up and get on the horse. We're heading to the border town." As the name suggests, the border town is located at the edge of the country, and it's also where my father is stationed. Xu Yunhe wrote to me, telling me that my father was seriously injured while defending the border. Among all the military generals in the court, the Xu family accounts for half, and my father alone makes up 30%. Originally, according to past conventions, Xu Yunhe and I would not have gotten married, as the emperor would not feel at ease with 2 major military families joining forces. However, for me to marry the man of my dreams, my father was willing to be stationed at the border city. Unable to return to the capital without reason for this marriage, Xu Yunhe, a promising young general, stubbornly refused to return to the battlefield at this moment. My father only has me, his daughter, and among the Xu and Zhong families, only I can take to the battlefield. I hope that this time, I will be the one to protect them. I rode at full speed all the way to the border town, not daring to rest for a full day and night. In the bedroom on the bed lay a pale, weathered middle-aged man, my father, known as General Zhong, a great commander who struck fear into the hearts of the enemy nation. "Dad, I'm here. I can't go on with that Shu boy anymore. He has someone else in his heart. So I can only come to be a little general now," I said casually as I sat down, my gaze fixed on my father's wound, my hand resting on his wrist. I heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully, no internal organs were injured, the external wounds just need proper care and rest. "What are you doing here? Your father has spent half his life on horseback. If I die here, it's only fitting. But now that you've come, how am I supposed to explain it to your mother? If anything were to happen to you, how could I ever face her?" You want me to die without peace?" Zhong Bin said with a helpless expression. "Your breathing sounds strong, so I'm relieved. I'm going to go see who dared to bully my father." I immediately stood up. "If I don't step forward now, I'm afraid morale will become unstable. Qingyun, women cannot serve as officials. Are you really going to do this?" Zhong Bin looked panicked. "Father, when a general is in the field, he may not always follow orders from the court." "Master, rest assured, we will protect the young lady," Kui said with a determined look in her eyes. "I had almost forgotten that in our youth, we once practiced martial arts together." Putting on the battle robe I had prepared long ago, holding the familiar long sword in my hand, my face reflected on the gleaming white blade, a familiar yet unfamiliar sight. "The young general has arrived." The deputy general in the army saw me and respectfully shouted, "In my youth, I had also secretly taken to the battlefield, but back then, no matter how I performed, I could only be an unknown soldier. Now, things are different. The achievements that are rightfully mine should be written after my name, Uncle Liu. Get ready, night raid. Let them know my father isn't someone to be messed with. I carefully studied the terrain map, listening to the Deputy General explain the previous battle situation, and soon we worked out a strategy. The generals who had worked together before quickly reached an agreement with me that night. I led a small squad to raid the enemy camp, while the Deputy General led the main force in a frontal assault. The squad I led consisted almost entirely of the top martial arts experts. Only a few garrison soldiers remained in the enemy camp. Young General, we have found the provisions, Zhong-san said, gripping his blood-stained blade. Got it. I swiftly slashed sideways, and a soldier who was about to reach us fell with a thud. Red blood splattered onto my black clothes. But it wasn't noticeable. Zhong-san's figure vanished into the night, and with agile movements, I soon appeared in the stable. Now only a few old, weak, sick, and disabled horses remain in the stables. When flames shot up to the sky, I couldn't bear it and cut the reins of all the remaining horses in the enemy camp, letting them charge recklessly through the raging fire in search of a new way out. There was no doubt that we won this battle. The enemy, having run out of provisions, soon withdrew from the city. We were the first to capture a city. Early in the morning, I appeared in my father's bedroom, covered in dust and grime. Father, I've avenged you. You didn't raise this daughter in vain, did you? Let them keep mocking you for not having a son. See if this daughter of yours isn't more useful than all their sons. Zhong Bin looked at my face, his eyes reddening, then suddenly turned his head away. All right, hurry up and wash up. A young lady shouldn't be so dirty. Your daughter here is a heroine who doesn't let men outshine her. By the way, my name should be on the letter returning to the capital this time. I can't control you anymore. Do as you please. Zhong Bin's tone carried a hint of dejection. The Deputy General had already written the battle report to be sent to the capital. I glanced at it and double-checked the words. Zhong Qingyun, daughter of Zhong Bin, led everyone to capture the city. From the moment the battle report was sent to the capital, I began to wait. Each day, I continued practicing martial arts, reading books, and occasionally visiting my father. In my spare time, I would ride my horse wildly through this sparsely populated area, drawing my bow and shooting arrows, hunting a few small animals. Life was so free that Zhong Qingyun almost forgot everything about the capital. But things never disappear just because you don't want them to. The Yellow Edict, the eunuch's altered tone, everything announced that it had arrived. Zhong Qingyun was brought back to the capital by an edict, said to be entering the capital to receive rewards according to merit. Zhong Bin's weathered face was filled with worry. Qingyun, since ancient times, there has never been a female general. When you return this time, don't fight for it anymore. Your father doesn't seek those empty honors. I just want you to live a good life. Dad, don't worry. I'll be fine when I go back. I walk the straight and narrow, with a clear conscience. Dad, take good care of yourself. I don't know when I'll be able to see you again after this trip back. Next time, try not to get hurt. I might not be able to avenge you, Zhong Qingyun said with a playful grin. Before Zhong Bin could persuade her further, mounting the horse, he brandished the long whip in his hand and swiftly vanished from everyone's sight. A slender yet resolute figure sat firmly atop the horse. The wind lifted her long robe, not in disarray, but rather with an air of striking elegance, riding swiftly all the way to the capital. When the city gates swung open, a cacophony of gongs and drums erupted, a chaotic din rushing toward her face. In front of her stood two dense crowds of common people. General Zhong has returned. Oh, General Zhong is so beautiful. A woman can be just as heroic as a man. General Zhong protects our country, truly amazing. My eyes suddenly welled up with tears. Through the crowd, I saw many familiar figures. There were quite a few servants from the Shu family among those beating gongs and drums. Sure enough, in the crowd, I spotted Shu Yunhe dressed in coarse linen clothes. Our eyes met for a moment. Shu Yunhe silently gave a thumbs up, his eyes filled with admiration amidst the cheers of the people. I and the soldiers behind me ascended the grand hall together. I knew the emperor was displeased with me because, in the past, When a general returned victorious from a campaign and had captured a city, the emperor would lead a host of ministers to welcome him. Now I walked into the court without showing any emotion. "Long live the emperor, your humble subject Zhong Qingyun pays respects to your majesty." The emperor, a middle-aged man in his 40s, appeared quite imposing when he remained silent. "Zhong Qingyun, you should have been rewarded for reclaiming the lost territory, but you acted on your own. How should this be handled? Since the founding of our dynasty, there has never been a precedent for women serving in the military." The surroundings fell into complete silence. The ministers lowered their heads, neither speaking nor daring to look at the emperor, as if each of them was avoiding something. "Your Majesty, when a general is outside the capital, he may disregard orders when circumstances demand it. At that time, the situation was urgent, and my father was gravely injured. I had no choice but to take the field. Moreover, as a woman, I have never felt that I should not go to war." I raised my head and looked forward, speaking clearly. "Your servant, Zhong Qingyun, was born into a world of martial generals. I began learning martial arts at the age of 3, learned to read at 4, and from a young age followed my master, the greatest warrior in the world, to hone my skills. Among the younger generation, my martial arts rank among the highest. I grew up in a military camp, surrounded by military laws and studying battle formations on sand tables. The rise and fall of the nation is the responsibility of every commoner. With such skills, I should serve the country. A mere woman, I can still take the field and fight the enemy." As my words ended, the ministers around me began whispering among themselves. I didn't look at the emperor's face after all. It was certain to be grim, so why bother? I kept my head down, staring at my knees, kneeling on the ground, waiting for the final outcome. Some of the court officials, old-fashioned and rigid, stepped forward to lecture me, but I merely glanced at them. My gaze then drifted upward. "Zhong Qingyun, you have earned military merit, so I will arrange a good marriage for you, allowing you to remarry to the second son of the minister's family, Xin Ziyan." I suddenly turned to look at Xin Ziyan. "We're all children of officials, my family being military officers, his family civil officials. Though we're not close, I can still recognize who he is." Perhaps my expression was too surprised. I never thought that my so-called resistance, my so-called pursuit, would ultimately only result in a different marriage, harming someone. I opened my mouth to speak, then stopped. Then, meeting the emperor's gaze, he merely said softly, "A good marriage is more important for a daughter. I'm sure your father would be at ease with that." I still have a father, so naturally I cannot act as I please. The great hall was silent, with the old ministers stirring restlessly, eventually all turning their gazes toward Xin Ziyan. One must know that Xin Ziyan was not only from a distinguished family but also exceptionally talented himself. He had once been the celebrated third-place scholar in the capital, and if it weren't for the rule that men of the Xin family must wait until they reached the age of 20 to marry, Xin Ziyan would have already been wed. I've forgotten how I left the hall outside the palace gates. I suddenly felt like laughing. Everything I had done seemed like the act of a clown, carefully plotting, risking my life on the battlefield, only to be confined to the backyard by a single word from the emperor. It seemed I had lingered too long, for the surrounding courtiers had all left, leaving only one carriage still parked in place. Though my time in the capital had been brief, I still recognized the carriages of various families. The carriage of the minister's residence. Strangely, the two families had never had any contact before. A pale hand lifted the curtain. Xin Ziyan had clear, refined features, dressed in official robes, exuding a sense of maturity and composure, yet his 19-year-old face still carried a hint of youthful innocence. "General Zhong, if you don't have a ride, I'd be happy to give you a lift." I suppressed my disheveled appearance, not in the mood to respond, and waved my hand. "Thank you. But someone has already come to pick me up." I boarded the carriage of the general's mansion, this time not the Shu family's general's mansion, but the Zhong family's. On the way back to the mansion, I remained silent, unable to come up with any good strategy no matter what. I wasn't alone, so I couldn't act as I pleased. The carriage came to a stop. I saw Xu Yunhe. He simply said in a calm tone, "Let's talk inside." The Zhong family's general's mansion was empty and desolate. The Zhong family was selfish and weak, and by the time it reached me, I was the sole heir. In the past, Zhong Bin, fearing that distant relatives would bully me when I was young, forbade them from coming to the general's mansion. The vast mansion had only one master, me. In the main hall, Xu Yunhe took out a box of my favorite hibiscus pastries. Unexpected, but reasonable, isn't it? No emperor likes others challenging his authority. Don't be afraid, Xinzian is a decent person, just endure it for now. Once you're divorced, you'll be free again. Next time, don't go stirring up trouble. An individual's power is just too weak. Have some delicious food and calm your mood. I picked up a piece of pastry and sighed. Even if he wanted to help me, getting a divorce would likely offend the emperor. We're not related or close, why would he go out of his way to do that? Xu Yunhe paused for a moment, seemingly also thinking that what I said made sense, and had nothing more to say. He left with only one sentence: as long as there is war on the border, we will have our day to rise. I don't know how the war is going. All I knew was that my father had also been summoned back by the emperor, ostensibly to recover from his injuries, but actually to help arrange my wedding. Xu Yunhe was sent to guard the frontier city. The day Xu Yunhe left, I saw him off from the city wall. Seeing the reluctant farewell between him and Chen Shuang, I felt nothing at all. Indeed, emotions were never meant for me. The date was set very soon, on the 8th day of the next month. For this entire month, I hardly stepped out of the house, lazily sleeping, eating all kinds of snacks, and occasionally picking out wedding dresses and jewelry for the big day. Life was quite leisurely. The day before the wedding, I was still able to leisurely lie on a recliner and bask in the sun. On the day of the wedding, I remained as steady as an old dog, going through the ceremony without a hint of personal emotion. At night, everyone withdrew. In the red bridal chamber, seeing Xinzian's flushed cheeks, I finally realized that we were truly married. I'm sorry, I've held you back. How about this? If there's any girl you like, you can marry her first, and when the time is right, we can divorce. What do you think? I said seriously. After all, Xinzian was highly sought after. Yet he ended up with a second-hand woman like me. This was something Kui overheard outside, and when she came back, she complained to me angrily, making me realize that I had dragged her down. Xinziyuan's shy smile faded as she heard this, giving me a slightly hurt look before lowering her head. Are you really thinking of me, or do you just not like me? I was completely confused. It seems my puzzled expression was too obvious. He stole a glance at me and added, no matter what rumors are circulating outside, marrying you was my own choice, and I am very happy about it. When I find the opportunity, I will take you to the borderlands, to the frontier, to any place you want to go. How does that sound? Before I could say anything, I saw him staggering toward the bed. Lying face down on the bed, he started to sleep. I didn't want to guess how much weight his words carried. I just wanted to know how to sleep tonight. Seeing that he had already fallen asleep, I gently pushed him toward the center of the bed, covered him with the blanket, then fetched another blanket and began to sleep. Early the next morning, because of the imperial marriage arrangement, we had to first go to the palace to express our gratitude, and then return to serve tea to our in-laws. I completed the entire process very properly, almost wanting to give myself a 5-star review. Holding the big red envelope, I returned to my room to catch up on sleep. Xinziyuan went to the study to attend to his own matters. Because of the wedding leave, I've spent more time with Xinzian these past few days, and I've found that he's actually quite a nice person. On the first day, I was already eating my favorite dishes, and everything I wore and used was high-end. When Xinzian wasn't busy, he would come to see me, have meals with me, bring me my favorite lotus pastry, and sometimes, he would even invite me to practice martial arts together. As a result, while I was performing with great vigor, he had already collapsed from exhaustion on the side, clapping his hands loudly. 10 days after the wedding, my father was finally going back to the border town, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Outside the city gate, Xinzian gently took my hand and patted it in comfort. Later, when we have the chance, we'll go see your father-in-law together. Don't worry, I won't mistreat you. I glanced at Xinzian, who was thin but taller than me, with a larger frame. Okay, don't worry, I won't give you the chance to mistreat me. After returning to the city, back in the carriage, I brought up the topic again. urging him to take a concubine and find a woman he loves to spend his life with. As a result, Shinzian looked at me with a resolute expression. I will never take a concubine. Don't make up such excuses to try to divorce me. I gave a half smile. But no woman divorces a man. That's not necessarily true, Shinzian muttered quietly. I remembered that, in the eyes of outsiders, it was as if Xu Yunhe had taken a concubine, and I had divorced him. I opened my mouth but didn't explain. Days passed slowly, but they were not bad. At least in this small courtyard, I was free, and Shinziyuan took good care of me. 3 months later, Xu Yunhe's battle report reached the capital. For a while, all the common people were talking about General Xu Xie. Because of this, Chen Shuang and I were once again pulled out for comparison. Those days, Shinziyuan's expression was never very pleasant. Every time he looked at me, he had the look of someone viewing a faithless person. I don't know what's wrong with this Shinziyuan. Outwardly, he's always composed and mature, but around me, he's especially childish. For 8 consecutive months, there was nothing but good news. The war had reached a stalemate. A game changer was needed. Xu Yunhe made a special request to the emperor to send a military strategist to lend a hand. The emperor hesitated for a long time, finally issuing an order for Shinzian to go, and I followed to take care of him. It was already spring, with flowers blooming. Shinzian was a civil official after all, and after the exhausting journey to the frontier city, he fell ill, feverish and delirious. Still worrying about whether I had eaten and if my bedding was warm enough. This frontier city was much colder than the capital. My heart softened, and I gently touched Shinzian's burning forehead, giving him fever-reducing medicine. Qingyun, is he all right? Xu Yunhe came in, glanced over, and said, it's fine. I'll go take a look at the sand table map and hear about your recent battles. I calmly stood up, tucking in the corner of the blanket. As I did in the hall, I discussed matters with everyone. Until late into the night. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside. I saw my sickly beauty husband trembling as he walked in. Madam, did I disturb you? I woke up and didn't see you, so I was a little worried, Shinzian said slowly upon seeing a room full of people. I pulled Shinzian over and helped him fasten the ties on his clothes. It's cold outside, so make sure your clothes are properly fastened. Go back and rest. We'll be done discussing soon. It's fine. I'll wait for you. I want to hear it too. Shinzian instinctively sat down next to me. I couldn't keep arguing with him, so I started discussing with everyone, and occasionally Shinzian would chime in. Due to the urgency of the war, within a few days, I headed to the battlefield. Right before I left, Shinzian held my hand and said, I ask for nothing, only that you return safely. Don't worry, I will. I galloped on my horse, feeling incredibly carefree. I never expected you to like this type of green tea style. Do all of us military officers fall for this? Xu Yunhe teased. He's doing fine, I said flatly. This battle was particularly hard to fight, lasting a full 2 months, with small skirmishes every 3 days and major ones every 5. Gradually, I also began to develop small wounds on my body. Shin Ziyuan specifically went to the nearby city to find a female doctor for me, afraid that I wouldn't properly treat my injuries. Regarding my father's concern, Shinzian also helped cover it up a bit. He told me that he understood my worry, fearing that if my father knew, he would only worry as well, so it was better not to tell him. During this time, Shinzian's tactics were gradually improving, and he truly began to act like a military strategist, offering advice and planning strategies. The 3rd month, the enemy nation surrendered, and the war came to an end. I'm going back to the capital, back to that small courtyard to waste away my life. How should this battle report be written? Xu Yunhe looked at me. Put it under Shinzian's name. Consider it as me repaying him. I smiled and looked at Shinzian. All right, put it under my name, Shinzian said cheerfully. Returning to the capital, the people lined the streets to welcome us, but this time, I simply sat quietly in the carriage, seeing the cheers of the people and thinking of the residents of the border town who could now live and work in peace. Whether I could become a female general no longer seemed so important. When it came to entering the palace to receive rewards for our achievements, I naturally did not go. The rocking chair in the courtyard had already been cleaned, and the weather in May and June was perfect for basking in the sun. I lay in the rocking chair, swaying back and forth. Suddenly, there was a loud clattering sound. Shin Ziyan burst through the door, grinning from ear to ear as he spoke. "My dear, look at this reward the emperor gave me. I'm going to serve as a local official in the border town. We can stay there as long as we like, but you'll have to teach me how to ride a horse. I'm not very good at it." Listening to Shin Ziyan talking endlessly. "Shin Ziyan, the environment in Bianqing is harsh. You stayed there for 3 months and fell ill for a month. Why did you go there?" I said, a bit angry. Shin Ziyan grew up in the capital, living in luxury and never suffering hardship. There was no need for him to endure hardship with me. "My dear, you might not know how graceful you looked on horseback. I want to see that often in the future." Half a month later, the folks in the border town are all talking about it. "Another unlucky soul has arrived from the capital recently. Rumor has it he offended the emperor and was banished here. It's just uncertain how long this poor fellow will last in the border town. Those young masters from the capital can't endure such hardships. Your legs must be aching. I'll apply some ointment for you later. It should feel better by tonight." I dismounted and helped Shin Ziyan down from his horse. "Darling, I think I've made quite some progress. Maybe one day I can join you on the battlefield," Shin Ziyan said, his eyes filled with anticipation. "What's so great about the battlefield that everyone rushes to come here?" Zhong Bin said gruffly. He had finally managed to marry his daughter off to the capital so she could enjoy a life of comfort, only for her to follow her husband to this desolate place. Shin Ziyan and I exchanged a glance, smiled, and said nothing. After arriving at the border town, our relationship seemed to have grown a bit closer. Shin Ziyan didn't mind me going to the military camp, and sometimes he would even go with me. Apart from daily life, I occasionally went to the military camp, always prepared for battle. Unfortunately, a year later, I became pregnant, and Shin Ziyan stepped in to take charge, urging me to focus on nurturing the baby. From then on, our lives became chaotic and tumultuous. The bright moon hung high in the sky. The weather in the border town turned cold early. A charcoal fire had already been lit in the room. I lay on the soft couch, while Shin Ziyan flipped through books to choose a name for the child. "Shin Ziyan, when did you start liking me?" Shin Ziyan's body stiffened for a moment. He closed the book, turned around, and gently stroked my dark hair. "When? Probably the first time I saw you. When you first entered the capital, riding a tall horse, looking heroic and carefree. I thought to myself, when could I become someone like that?" Later, I inquired about your news, and found that you were even more vibrant than I had imagined. Unfortunately, at that time, I heard that you and Xu Yunhe had been childhood sweethearts, already betrothed, and I was disappointed for a long time. Fortunately, in the end, we ended up together. I smiled. "Now that I'm pregnant, does that mean I'm no longer vibrant, but rather a bit clumsy?" "Vibrancy has never been about the body, but the spirit." Shin Ziyan smiled. Then Shin Ziyan added, "I heard that Xu Yunhe has already taken a second concubine, unlike me, who only has you in my heart. I wonder." "My dear, I grew up with him. We're just friends. Don't worry. If I really liked him and couldn't live without him, and he dared to flirt around, I'd break his legs." "Darling, don't worry, my legs will definitely be fine," Shin Ziyan said contentedly, nuzzling against my face, acting extremely clingy. After having the child, I didn't stay home all day to take care of them. I still occasionally went to the military camp. Now that it's a time of peace and prosperity, the military camp has become a bit boring, so I simply opened a restaurant. Business is doing quite well, and occasionally I help some poor children, especially girls. In this era, it's very hard for the poor to survive, and it's even harder for women. One day, Shin Ziyan said he wanted to turn my experiences into a story and have storytellers share it. That way, more women might awaken, and perhaps the treatment of women could improve a little. I thought it made a lot of sense, so I vigorously developed the business. With modern methods, the business thrived. About 80 to 90% of my employees are women, and I use a portion of the profits to support women who want to change but feel powerless. With Xu Yunhe's help, my story quickly spread throughout the country. 5 years later, the enemy country attacked again. The young new emperor allowed me to go to war. From then on, the first female general emerged. Later, several years passed, And I heard that a woman had argued passionately to take the imperial examination. Change is long and winding, but as long as you start, there is hope. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. After 3 years of marriage to Kui Yanqing, he still refuses to share a bed with me. I no longer wish to force the issue. When I went to seek my brother's permission for a divorce, I happened to overhear their conversation. Song Yenji has been close to the princess since childhood. Even though she is now married to you, how can I possibly send Song Yenji to the northern border camp just because they exchanged a few words? The usually aloof man grew visibly agitated. It's not just talking. I saw Yunrong smile at him. In 3 years of marriage, she never once smiled at me. Your Majesty, I am already 6 years older than Yunrong, now that she is surrounded by younger men. How can I not be anxious? Upon hearing this, the emperor laughed. The wheel of fortune turns. Grand Tutor, do you still remember when you struck her palm during lessons in childhood? Kui Yanqing let out a bitter laugh and said, of course I remember. If I had known it would come to this, I should have beaten myself mercilessly back then. That day, he truly knelt before me holding a ruler, his voice hoarse. Please, Your Highness, strike me. 3 years ago, my grand wedding with Kui Yanqing shocked the entire Shangjing city. He was the most outstanding descendant of the Qinghe Kui clan, the youngest top scholar in the imperial examinations of this dynasty, who had risen to the rank of one of the 3 dukes at a young age. He was disciplined, adhered to propriety, and maintained a cool, self-restrained demeanor. I was the princess of the Dasheng dynasty who least observed the rules of propriety, and I had once been his most troublesome student in the eyes of everyone. This marriage was a mismatched pairing made by my ailing father in a moment of confusion, and we were not suited for each other. Kui Yanqing probably thought the same at that moment. He was saying goodnight to me from behind the screen before retiring to the side chamber. Suddenly, I had a mischievous idea to tease him and let out a drawn-out "Oh dear, what's wrong?" Kui Yanqing rushed in, only to see my robe half open. The tips of his ears turned bright red in an instant, and he hurriedly turned his head away. He said nothing, yet I seemed to hear the words, "Do not look at what is contrary to propriety." 3 years into our marriage, he still refused to share a bed with me. Since everything is fine, you should rest early." He was so nervous that he stumbled over his words, lifting his foot to leave. Grand Tutor, I called out to him, "Could you stay tonight?" He turned around, his fingers unconsciously rubbing the cuff of his sleeve, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down, until he finally managed to squeeze out a single word, "Okay." I watched him walk over with awkward, mismatched steps, standing rigidly straight in front of the bed, fidgeting like a student being scolded by his teacher. In my youth, I had stood before him just like this, hastily making up excuses for unfinished homework, only to be effortlessly exposed by him every time. Silence fell for a moment. I stood up and placed my hand on his waist, tilting my head to look at him, only to catch a glimpse of the nervousness in his eyes. He doesn't love me, so he naturally resists intimacy with me. A sour feeling welled up in my heart, and I slowly let go of my hand. Forget it, I am not a shameless person either. I lay back down, turning my back to him, and said, "You may leave, I am tired." He seemed to stand in place for a long time before finally stepping out the door lightly. My personal maid, Hongxiu, came in holding a stack of picture books, chattering away in my ear. Although the Grand Tutor is handsome, he's too rigid and dull. He only eats a few dishes at meals, only wears the plain silk with cloud patterns from the weaving bureau, and the folds of his clothes are neater than the laws of the Ministry of Justice. So, Princess, what on earth do you like about him? Hongxiu has been by my side since childhood, one of the few who knows of my affection for Kui Yanqing. In the age of budding affection, to capture the attention of the one I admired, I deliberately competed with him at every turn, using mischievous behavior to conceal the hidden feelings of a young girl. I had hoped to slowly share this past with Kui Yanqing after he fell in love with me, but now it seems that day is far off. He only wishes for us to be a couple in name. Feeling troubled, I took the notebook from Hongxiu's hands and flipped through it casually, only to be startled. 2 men could actually. Over the years, Kui Yanqing had treated me coldly, and I had suspected that there was another woman in his heart, even secretly. Sending someone to follow him, but for a full 3 months, there was no trace of any woman by his side at this moment. I suddenly realized that perhaps my direction had been wrong from the very beginning. The person he likes might not be a woman. Kui Yanqing is aloof and distant, rarely getting close to anyone, yet with the Emperor, he seems more like a close friend than a subject. They couldn't possibly. The next day, I entered the palace at the crack of dawn to show concern for the Empress. The Empress yawned, looking utterly drained. Yunrong, what exactly do you want to say today? I decided to get straight to the point. Empress, I want to know how your relationship with the Emperor has been lately. The Empress instantly snapped out of her drowsiness, her alarm bells ringing. Are you trying to fill your brother's harem with more women? I treat you like a dear sister, and you bring me a rival in love. Speak, which seductress sent you here? My sister-in-law, born into a military family, speaks bluntly. I had to coax and soothe her for quite a while before the matter was finally put to rest. Your brother and I have been married for 5 years and have 3 children. What do you think? But as for you and Grand Tutor Kui, she lowered her gaze, lost in thought, and said, you've been married for 3 years. Yet there's still no sign of a child. Could it be that he's incapable? To be honest, this matter is quite embarrassing, so I steered the conversation toward her. And my elder brother, my sister-in-law's eyes curved into crescents as she recounted, in bits and pieces, many sweet old stories about their relationship. They knew each other from a young age, understood each other's hearts, and shared a deep affection. I became increasingly certain that Kui Yanqing's feelings for my elder brother were merely unrequited. Before leaving, the Empress Dowager slipped a brocade box into my arms, whispering mysteriously that I should open it only when alone. I said nothing, handing it over to Hongxiu instead. As I stepped out of the palace gate, I ran into Kui Yanqing. He took off his cloak and draped it over my shoulders, saying gently, the wind is strong, be careful not to catch a chill. I pulled it off and shoved it back into his hands, replying coldly, Grand Tutor, you should keep it for yourself. After all, you're getting on in years. He clearly admires the Crown Prince, yet he still puts on a show of being a loving couple with me. Just thinking about it makes me furious. After returning to the mansion, when I remembered the brocade box from the Crown Princess, Hongxiu was completely bewildered. Wasn't that the gift you were going to give to the Grand Tutor? I sent it over as soon as we returned to the mansion. It was only then that I remembered today was Kui Yanqing's birthday, and I had originally gone to the palace to ask for the inkstone that the Li Kingdom had presented as tribute, intending to give it to him as a birthday gift. I was so focused on gathering information that I completely forgot about this matter. Should we go get it back now? Hongxiu asked me as I was pondering. I looked up and saw Kui Yanqing standing at the door, holding the brocade box in his arms, his ears tinged with a faint blush. Princess, your gift, I really like it. Hongxiu tactfully withdrew. I cautiously stepped forward to take the brocade box, and upon opening it, I was left speechless with a wry smile. Inside was a stack of erotic paintings. My hand trembled, and the box fell to the ground, scattering the indecent images all over the floor. 36 forms, 72 forms. The techniques are comparable to martial arts secrets. This wasn't meant as a gift for you. Hongxiu took the wrong one, I said, my throat tightening as I explained with a guilty conscience. Kui Yanqing's face flushed with a suspicious redness. He hesitated for a moment, took 2 steps forward, and leaned in slightly to close the distance between us. If your highness is willing, we could also study it together. If it were any other time, I would have gladly accepted, but I already knew that his heart belonged to another man. At this moment, he was merely enduring the disgust and playing along, thinking I was hinting at something. I felt a chill run through my entire body and hurriedly refused him. I don't want to, Grand Tutor. It would be best if we maintain some distance from now on. Under the candlelight, the color drained from Kui Yanqing's face in an instant. Yunrong, he rarely called me by my name. We are husband and wife. These matters. No need, I interrupted him coldly. The Grand Tutor need not force himself like this. Besides, I already know about the secret between you and my brother. At worst, I could just keep a male companion. It would be better than forcing him to endure discomfort while being intimate with me. The flames flickered, emitting a soft sizzling sound. Kui Yanqing's expression faltered, his voice hoarse. You already know, such an unspeakable habit, yet he admitted it quite openly. After a long silence, Kui Yanqing finally asked me with a pale face, "Will you hate me then?" I countered, "What do you think?" Of course I would. A fleeting glimpse outside the imperial study. From that moment on, he filled my heart and my eyes, while he, from beginning to end, saw me only as a pawn to conceal his true intentions. Seeing his desolate expression, I couldn't bear it any longer and softened my words. "I don't hate you, but please, Grand Tutor, do not enter my room." Again, there should be a distinction between men and women. Kui Yanqing hung his head, his face unusually pale. After a long silence, his voice came out hoarsely. "All right." Kui Yanqing began deliberately avoiding me. Even if we happened to see each other from afar, he would hurriedly flee. Although I was the one who suggested keeping our distance, being so disliked by someone I've admired for years still doesn't feel good. In the busiest male brothel in the capital, my cousin Song Yenji seemed hesitant to speak. "With you embracing beauties left and right, aren't you afraid the Grand Tutor will be angry when he finds out?" I scoffed, tilting my head back to down the strong liquor handed to me by the person beside me. If Kui Yanqing knew I had a new lover and would never bother him again, I wonder how delighted he would be. Holding up my wine glass, I said to Song Yenji, "Don't mention that killjoy today. We're not leaving until we're drunk." Before the words had fully left my mouth, Song Yenji suddenly stood up, a hint of panic in his voice. Grand Tutor." I followed the sound and looked toward the door. Who else could wear court attire so elegantly if not Kui Yanqing? The lamplight fell upon his shoulders. He stood like a solitary pine overlooking an abyss, noble and unattainable. Just as he was at our first meeting, thinking of how my years of affection had come to nothing in a single day, I couldn't help but let out a self-mocking laugh. Song Yenji tried to explain. "On my behalf, Grand Tutor, please don't misunderstand. My cousin and I came here to listen to the music," I sneered, tugging at the hands of the two people beside me, and asked Kui Yanqing, "If the Grand Tutor is interested, would you like me to share one of them with you?" Hearing this, Song Yenji's expression changed drastically. He quickly pulled the two people away and mouthed the words "good luck" to me. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Looking at Kui Yanqing's stern face, I could already guess how he would reprimand me next. "As a princess, you come to this filthy place to seek pleasure, disregarding propriety and law. What kind of behavior is this?" "But I don't care about propriety, law, or even the dignity of being a princess. All I have ever wanted is him alone." Kui Yanqing walked up to me, slowly crouched down, and said in a voice as gentle as jade, "Princess, I've come to take you home." I was momentarily speechless, and for no reason, my mood suddenly calmed down. He took off his cloak, wrapped it around me, tucking it in again and again, then pulled me into his embrace. Looking down, he asked, "Are you cold?" I shook my head, just staring at him. So gorgeous, the delusions I had barely suppressed began to creep back out. I drifted into a heavy sleep and woke up when the sun was already high in the sky. "Princess, after the Grand Tutor brought you back yesterday, he immediately ordered someone to prepare sobering soup, fed it to you himself, and stayed by your bedside until dawn before leaving." With a bright and piercing gaze, Hongxiu recounted in detail how Kui Yanqing had taken care of me all night, ultimately concluding that he might have feelings for me. The momentary surge of emotion faded along with the effects of the wine, and my heart had long since settled into calm. Having disrupted my marriage plans, Kui Yanqing likely felt a sense of guilt, which is why he sought to make amends through these small, trivial gestures. Yet, it would have been better if he had simply allowed me to sever all lingering hopes. To show my indifference towards him, I ordered Hongxiu to pick a few male companions for me. Hongxiu looked utterly shocked, her eyes darting back and forth. "What kind of gentleman does the princess desire?" I thought about it. They should be tall, fair-skinned, and handsome, preferably well-educated, not too talkative, and not too frivolous in their behavior. Hongxiu scratched her head. "Aren't you just describing the Grand Tutor?" I shook my head with a light sigh and added another condition, and no cold, wooden personalities either. enduring the headache from a hangover, I entered the palace to attend the banquet. Song Yenji leaned in and whispered to me, "Yesterday, you mentioned sharing the Grand Tutor with someone. What did you mean? Could it be that he has a preference for men?" I didn't expect him to be so direct. I was taken aback and was about to explain when I looked up and met Kui Yanqing's gaze. He walked side by side with the emperor, chatting and laughing, and they actually looked quite well matched at that moment. I truly let go. I asked Song Yenji, "Cousin, do you think if I propose a divorce from Kui Yanqing, the emperor would agree?" Divorce? Song Yenji couldn't control his volume. When the two people who had just walked over looked at him in unison, he was so frightened that he instantly fell silent. It was unclear whether Kui Yanqing had heard clearly, but his face seemed to pale for a moment, and in the end, he said nothing. "Cousin, why don't you marry me? After the wedding, we can each live our own lives. That way, Aunt won't keep urging you to get married." Song Yenji was startled and waved his hands repeatedly. How would I dare to compete with the Grand Tutor for a woman? "Cousin, please don't get me into trouble." As the #1 playboy in Shangjing City, he had been tormented by Kui Yanqing so much during his time at the Imperial Academy that he still felt a sense of dread whenever he saw him. Marrying Song Yenji was a joke, but the divorce is serious. In the prime of my youth, I cannot remain a widow for the rest of my life. Rather than indulging in distant and unattainable expectations, it is better to cut ties with him early and find a better match, or keep a few handsome men who resemble him to live a carefree and unrestrained life. After the banquet, Kui Yanqing was nowhere to be found, so I dismissed my attendants and went alone to find the emperor in the imperial garden. The emperor and Kui Yanqing were sitting opposite each other. Song Yenji has been close to the princess since childhood. Although the princess is now married to you, how can I possibly send Song Yenji to the northern border camp just because they exchanged a few words? Kui Yanqing, however, grew anxious. After 3 years of marriage, Yunrong has never once smiled at me. I am already 6 years older than her, and now she is surrounded by younger men. How can I not be anxious? The emperor chuckled. "Grand Tutor, do you still remember how you once struck her palm during your teaching days?" Kui Yanqing let out a bitter laugh and said, "Of course I remember. If I had known it would come to this, I should have slapped myself hard back then." My blood froze in an instant. Kui Yanqing, is he jealous of me? I never expected someone as aloof as Kui Yanqing to harbor such turbulent emotions. The voice from behind the rockery sounded again, and I pricked up my ears. Yunrong must have disliked me for being older, rigid, and boring, which is why she fell for someone else. And she knows that secret now. She must resent me. I was listening intently when a sudden voice from behind startled me. "Third princess, you've arrived." Lai Fu spoke to me in a high-pitched voice, actually trying to alert my royal brother. I had no choice but to step out. "I just arrived. I didn't hear anything you were saying earlier." They exchanged a glance. My royal brother cleared his throat twice, stood up, and said, "I need to go check on the little princess. You two should return to your residences for now. We can discuss any matters tomorrow." We didn't speak until we had left the palace gates. In the carriage, he suddenly broke the silence. Did the princess truly not hear anything today? I followed his lead and said, "I heard a little, like the Grand Tutor saying he should give himself a good beating." The moment the words fell, Kui Yanqing slowly crouched down, pulling out a smooth-edged ruler from beneath the seat, inscribed with the words "Uphold truth and observe discipline." I recognized it at a glance. It was the very one he had used to strike my palm back then. To avoid my studies, I deliberately trained several people to imitate my handwriting. Even the emperor was deceived. But Kui Yanqing saw through it at once. He gently struck my palm with the ruler, asking with each strike, "Do you understand your mistake, princess?" Now, he was kneeling before me, holding a ruler with both hands, his voice hoarse. "Princess, please strike me." My breath caught, and an inappropriate image from an erotic painting suddenly flashed in my mind, my cheeks instantly burning, covering my wildly beating heart. I looked at him awkwardly. "There's no need for that. I'm not that petty." He remained unmoved, his usually cool eyes now tinged with a hint of frenzy, staring straight at me. My Adam's apple bobbed repeatedly as I forced out the words, "Then forgive me, please." I was breathing heavily, at a loss for what to do. Was this still the refined and elegant Grand Tutor I knew? The moment the carriage came to a stop, I leaped over the crouching figure and dashed into the mansion. Hongxiu, panting heavily, caught up and asked me what was wrong. I asked her, "When do you think a person's temperament might change drastically?" Today's Qianqing was so unfamiliar that it frightened me. She opened her round, almond-shaped eyes wide and thought seriously for a moment. Possessed by evil spirits, it's already strange enough that Qianqing is jealous of me, and his behavior in the carriage just now can indeed only be explained by possession. Various complex emotions surge in my heart, but as I look up, I see a familiar figure standing outside the window. Hongxiu also saw it, and she quietly leaned in and whispered, "Is the Grand Tutor tidying up his attire?" The person outside the window fussed around for a long time, stood for a while longer, and then left. Inexplicably, Hongxiu covered her mouth, suddenly realizing, has the Grand Tutor been possessed by evil spirits? Whether Qianqing is possessed or not, I don't know, but I'm certainly going mad when I lay down at night. His words in the Imperial Garden kept replaying in my mind, yet they felt unreal. If he likes me, what does his coldness over these 3 years mean? I can't figure it out. Unable to sleep all night, I decided to go find Qianqing and demand an explanation, but when I pushed open the door, I was left dumbfounded. In the courtyard, a row of young men dressed as scholars stood in formation, bowing to me in unison. "Greetings, third princess." Hongxiu approached with a roster in hand, grinning from ear to ear. "You said you liked scholarly men, so I specifically sent someone to the academy to find them. What do you think?" My lips twitched uncontrollably. "You work quite fast." "Of course," Hongxiu added, as if seeking credit. "I hired a few loudmouthed women and had them shout after school, 'Is anyone willing to be the third princess's intimate guest?' Then I eliminated the unattractive ones, and the rest are all that's left. Do you want me to praise you?" I held my forehead, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, deeply regretting this hasty decision. "No need for that. I know you actually wanted to make the Grand Tutor jealous, which is why you deliberately made such a big scene, to let him know how many men admire you and make him anxious. Well, now my reputation as a spoiled princess will also include being lustful. Princess, I have admired you for a long time. Please let me stay and serve you well." A man with thick makeup winked at me and walked up, swaying his hips. This manner is clearly that of a flamboyant type from a male brothel, not a proper scholar at all. Once someone started, the others also rushed forward eagerly. "Princess, I have written a poem." "Princess, I can perform sword dances." My scalp was tingling as my gaze fell upon the figure in plain attire standing at the back of the crowd. Qianqing's gaze, deep as a tranquil pool, rested heavily upon me, yet it was impossible to discern any emotion. "Lately, I've been feeling a bit lonely and wish to have a few companions by my side. Since the Grand Tutor is here, please help me assess them." I suddenly wanted to see Qianqing's reaction. Pain, humiliation, unwillingness, countless emotions surged and shifted in his eyes, his gaze heavy and sinking. Just as I was starting to feel a bit sorry for him, he spoke up. "All right, Qianqing ordered someone to bring a long table, sat down there, and began testing everyone. Insufficient knowledge, eliminated. Handwriting too poor, eliminated. Behavior too frivolous, eliminated. In less than half an hour, the vast crowd was reduced to just one person. I called out to Qianqing, "I find this person quite pleasing to the eye. Let him stay." Qianqing suddenly stood up, the light in his eyes gradually dimming. The person I had kept had already knelt down to express his gratitude. "Thank you, princess, I will serve you well." The man was taken away to be settled, and the long table with the ink, paper, and brushes had also been removed. Qianqing remained frozen in place, his fingertips trembling slightly. I asked him, "Does the Grand Tutor have anything else to say?" He tightened the corners of his lips, and after a long while, he managed to squeeze out a sentence. "Congratulations to the princess on finding a good companion." Then he turned and left without looking back. After he left, Hongxiu, who had witnessed the entire scene, came over and said, "Princess, I think the Grand Tutor was clearly jealous just now. I could naturally see it too, but I couldn't understand why he was still holding back. even though he was jealous to this extent for some reason. I felt a knot of frustration in my heart. Not long after, Hongxiu told me that Kui Yanqing had entered the palace again. He left and did not return to the mansion the next day. It wasn't until the third day that my elder brother sent someone to summon me to the palace. Third princess, it's a matter of utmost urgency. Lai Fu refused to say what exactly had happened, and I was so frightened that I thought something major had occurred in the palace, so I rushed there without stopping. In the side hall, my elder brother, with faint dark circles under his eyes, pointed wearily at the person slumped drunk on the table. Did you have a fight with him? He's been dragging me to drink in a gloomy mood these past 2 days, drinking himself into this sorry state. After hesitating for a moment, I told him about the matter of selecting male consorts. My elder brother was greatly shocked. Kui Yanqing has you in his heart and eyes, and you want him to help you choose male companions. I suddenly understood. It turned out I hadn't misheard that day in the Imperial Garden. Turning to look at the unconscious man, I suddenly remembered something and asked my elder brother, so what exactly is the secret between you two? It's fine to tell you. My elder brother sighed and said, when our father arranged your marriage, he staked the entire Kui family's honor to request it. If not for that, you might have been sent away for a political marriage. I suddenly froze completely. I had always thought that Kui Yanqing married me under imperial decree, and any affection he developed for me came after our marriage. I never imagined that this marriage was actually something he had sought. My brother's gaze paused slightly, and he said helplessly, at the time of the peace negotiations with the Qi Kingdom, our father was critically ill. He feared I couldn't handle it and considered agreeing to the Qi Kingdom's proposal of a marriage alliance to strengthen the diplomatic ties between the two nations. At that time, you were the only princess of marriageable age. Kui Yanqing begged me to keep it from you, fearing that if you knew, you would feel burdened and resent him for not asking your opinion before seeking the marriage decree. Back then, my heart tightened. Kui Yanqing taught me for 2 years. How could he forget that I am the princess of the great Shang dynasty who least adheres to etiquette and laws? If I hadn't been willing to marry him, why would I have agreed without a word? It hasn't been easy for him to get to where he is today. Treat him well. With those words, my brother urged me to take Kui Yanqing out of the palace, as he no longer wanted to keep him company. 4 drinks. When Hongxiu brought in the hangover soup, her eyes and brows were filled with smiles. Princess, should we take advantage of his drunkenness and sleep with him? I glanced at her, took the hangover soup, and gave it to Kui Yanqing to drink. He suddenly opened his eyes groggily, reached out to stroke my cheek, and murmured softly, Yunyang, I'm sorry, I've let you down, but I really like you so much. Could you please look at me? I woke up the next day in the afternoon. Hongxiu grinned and said, the Grand Tutor's ears were as red as if they were about to drip blood when he left this morning. Last night, you too. Nothing happened last night, but I was utterly exhausted because he started crying while talking, and I was worn out from comforting him after finishing my lunch. I was swinging in the courtyard, lost in thought as I contemplated confessing my feelings to Kui Yanqing. Once he returned from court, a gentle voice came from behind me. Your Highness hasn't summoned me for days. Have you forgotten about Yuqing? I turned around to see a man in a light robe, barefoot and bowing respectfully, his meticulously groomed face showing just the right hint of shyness. Meeting my puzzled gaze, Hongxiu immediately jumped in to explain, Princess, this is the gentleman you left behind that day. With my mind preoccupied these past few days, how could I have forgotten about him? Just as I was about to dismiss him, I saw Kui Yanqing standing not far away, his fingers gripping the rabbit lantern tightly. The moment our eyes met, the light in his eyes seemed to dim almost instantly. It doesn't take a genius to guess that he has misunderstood again. Only after I dismissed the others did he hesitantly step forward and cautiously ask, Princess, could you keep him outside the residence? I was taken aback, raising an eyebrow as I looked at him. And the reason? Being fond of handsome men is only natural, but if you keep them in the palace, it might give rise to rumors that could harm your reputation. Although Kui Yanqing tried hard to appear calm, I could still see the anxiety and suppressed pain on his face, and naturally guessed that he had forgotten what happened last night after getting drunk. However, his next words left me utterly speechless. The princess is noble and precious. Any gentleman who serves her must be in good health and of impeccable background. If the princess trusts me, I can assist with the initial selection." He pretended to be magnanimous, but he looked as if he were about to fall apart. "Does the Grand Tutor know what kind of gentleman I like?" I stared at his tightly pursed lips, smiled, and said, "I like someone exactly like the Grand Tutor." Kui Yanqing's pale, bony hand clenched even tighter, his dark pupils beneath long lashes cold and clear. I watched his reaction without blinking. He set down the rabbit lantern, muttered something about needing to attend to official matters, and fled as if escaping. If I hadn't already known his feelings, I would have thought he was unwilling at this moment. I instructed Hongxiu, "Go and discreetly send away that person named Yu or whatever, then let the Grand Tutor know that I intend to summon him to attend me tonight." I refuse to believe he can keep up the act any longer. Kui Yanqing arrived faster than I had imagined. He changed into a plain gauze robe, loosening the collar by half an inch to reveal a small cinnabar mole on his collarbone, and even picked up a gold-painted folding fan, leaning casually against the screen. This coy, coquettish manner of his left me utterly dumbfounded. The tips of his ears were flushed so red they seemed about to drip blood, yet he still forced himself to maintain a flirtatious posture, reaching for the phoenix pendant at my waist. "Today, I have come especially to offer myself as your companion. I wish to be the one who kneels at the princess's feet." I thought of the saddest moments of my life to keep from laughing out loud. Perhaps my expression, as I held back laughter, was too serious, for Kui Yanqing panicked. He untied the jade belt at his waist and began to undress, pleading in a near-begging tone, "If I can satisfy you, princess, can we not divorce? I won't be jealous without reason or make you unhappy anymore." It seems he did hear that mention of divorce back then. To preserve this relationship, the dignified and upright Grand Tutor actually disguised himself as a courtesan to amuse me. My voice carried a hint of laughter as I stared at him, clad only in his inner robe. All right, under the lamplight, his slender silhouette resembled a piece of jade bamboo on the verge of breaking. Suddenly, I wanted to see how he would look when he was overwhelmed by passion. Why did the Grand Tutor stop undressing? His pale knuckles paused slightly, his fingertips curling hesitantly around the sash of his robe. Blushing, he stood frozen in place. "Could we extinguish the candles first? I'm afraid I might startle you." I think I understood, and my face suddenly felt a little warm. Seeing that I did not respond, Kui Yanqing turned his back to me. His clothes fell away, revealing a dense array of old scars on his back, a shocking sight. I was so stunned that I couldn't speak for a long time. For a moment, I was choked with emotion. He hurriedly put on his clothes. Panicking, "I've offended the princess's eyes. I'll leave right away." I quickly called out to him, "Kui Yanqing, do you like me?" He paused in his steps, turning back with reddened eyes. I pinched his waist, stood on tiptoe, and planted a kiss on his lips. He froze instantly, his long lashes trembling slightly, his peach blossom eyes shimmering with waves. The next moment, a scorching breath descended, perhaps suppressed for too long. He didn't even give me a chance to say I liked him all night. This person looked frail, yet his body was surprisingly strong, able to attend court on time even after a night of exhaustion. I was aching and exhausted, and after waking up, I stared blankly at the red curtain. Kui Yanqing is a civil official, so he doesn't need to brandish weapons like a military officer. The origin of his injuries is quite mysterious, and since he's unwilling to talk, I'll investigate it myself. After hearing my instructions, Hongxiu stood still, hesitating to speak. Under my persistent questioning, she finally told the truth. "That guy named you or something, after being dismissed from the estate, went around boasting that he was my man, even using my name to swindle food and drink." I was so angry that my lips twitched, wishing I could drag that man over and give him a beating. "Following your orders, I gave him a few hundred taels of silver, but who knew he still wasn't satisfied?" Hongxiu's face flushed with anxiety. "You've finally managed to build a good relationship with the Grand Tutor. If he finds out about this, he'll surely distance himself from you again." Hongxiu had no idea that Kui Yanqing liked me, and she was worried sick. Somehow the matter reached the palace, and the Empress summoned me, earnestly advising me to be more restrained. "Are you doing all this to make him jealous?" the Empress said with certainty. I could tell long ago that you have feelings for him. I never expected her to be so perceptive despite her carefree demeanor. Normally, I shouldn't interfere in matters between the two of you, but there's something I must tell you. The Empress pulled me to sit down, glanced around, and said, when I was young, my father served as the governor of Qinghe Commandery. I spent a few years there and heard some rumors. Kui Yanqing's parents were not the legitimate heirs, and in their struggle for respect, they were extremely strict with him. At the age of 3, he was made to recite the ode to the Hall of Lingguang in Lu, with 1 lash for each mistake, and if he made too many errors, he would be locked in the woodshed without food or drink. That is why he became the youngest top scholar in the dynasty. Continuing the family's glory, suddenly, I understood his inner turmoil, recalling the crisscrossed whip marks on his back. My heart ached with pain. In the pavilion, a figure stood as straight as a green bamboo. Hongxiu said he had been sitting there for a full 2 hours. As I approached, he stood up and coughed lightly twice, masking his emotions. It's my fault for suggesting that he be raised outside, which has led to all the rumors now. Please bring him back to the mansion, Princess. I will certainly not treat him harshly. I stared wide-eyed in astonishment. There was a touch of heartache, a hint of helplessness, and a bit of amusement. If I told you that I don't even remember his name, and that I only kept him around to make you jealous, would you believe me? He froze in place, his eyes suddenly welling up with moisture. Anyone the princess fancies can be brought into the mansion. I will explain to His Majesty myself. There is no need for the princess to compromise herself out of pity for me. To this day, he still believes that I have remained unmarried all these years out of fear of my brother. In my anxiety, I tightly grasped his shoulders and blurted out, Kui Yanqing, in truth, from beginning to end, I have only ever had feelings for you. He suddenly froze, looking at me in disbelief. I sighed. Back then, I fell in love with you at first sight. To spend more time with you, I deliberately opposed you. Later, when my father arranged our marriage, I was overjoyed. But for these 3 years, you always kept your distance, making me mistakenly believe you despised me, which led to all these farces that followed. A few tears actually slid down Kui Yanqing's fair face as he lowered his head and sobbed, saying, I thought you didn't like me. As for that matter, you were still young when we got married, and I was afraid my scarred body would frighten you. So, actually, right after we got married, I took the initiative a few times, but he avoided me so much that I eventually gave up. I never imagined it was such an absurd reason. I asked him, since you like me, why did you offer to help me choose a male companion? He looked up, his eyes sparkling with light. As long as you're still willing to let me stay by your side, I can try to accept all of this. Yunrong, I was never worthy of you in the first place. I reached out to cover his mouth, but I've secretly liked you like this for many years. With the misunderstanding cleared, Kui Yanqing seemed like a different person. The aloof gentleman, detached from worldly affairs, turned into an affectionate puppy, repeatedly expressing his fondness for me. Even my royal brother said he had changed a lot, and his once aloof and distant demeanor had suddenly faded. On the night it was confirmed that I was pregnant, he held me in his arms, tears falling plop, plop. Yunrong, thank you. I touched the scar on his back and asked him, does it still hurt? He shook his head. It's okay if you don't admit it. For the rest of his life, he has me to care for him. From Kui Yanqing's perspective, the first time I met Yunrong, I was discussing matters with His Majesty. She wore a goose yellow jacket, and as she ran, the pearls and jade in her hair jingled. Right in front of me, an outsider, she threw herself into His Majesty's arms and cooed, Father, let me go out of the palace to see the lanterns, please. She truly was as unruly as the rumors said, yet I, who had always regarded etiquette as the foundation of my life, couldn't bring myself to dislike her. In fact, when I heard I was about to become her tutor, I even felt a bit of joy in my heart. I can see her often now. Rumors say she's spoiled and domineering, but among all the prestigious families at the Imperial Academy, she's the only one willing to plead for servants who've made mistakes. She has a childlike nature without any airs, treats her maids like sisters, and always picks fights with me. On the surface, I scold her, but deep down, I'm secretly delighted. Later, during a surprise inspection of her studies, His Majesty discovered that she had someone else write for her and ordered me to discipline her properly. Unable to defy the imperial command, I struck her palm with a ruler. I didn't use much force, and when I saw her eyes welling up with tears, I immediately stopped. I had intended to go after her to offer some comfort, but instead, I saw her throw herself into the arms of the young master of the Prime Minister's residence. Song Yenji was only a year older than her, of noble birth and handsome in appearance, yet he excelled neither in literature nor in martial arts, earning him the title of the top dandy in Shangjing City. He was not worthy of her. I was even less worthy later. Upon learning that she might be sent to the Qi Kingdom for a political marriage, I sought out Song Yenji, hoping he would take the initiative to propose and secure the marriage with her, but he is a coward. Since he is unwilling, I will no longer yield. I knelt outside His Majesty's bedchamber for a day and a night, just to beg for a marriage decree. She has just come of age. Even if she does not love me, I cannot let her go far from her homeland. Your Majesty finally relented on the day of the grand wedding. The phoenix veil embroidered with golden threads swayed gently, casting a glow on her cheeks like peach blossoms in March, outshining even the pearls by her ears. I had to try very hard to suppress the urge to kiss her. 3 years passed in a flash, and it wasn't until she asked, "Can you stay tonight?" that I realized she had grown up. But from that day on, she sought out male companions, laughed and chatted with Song Yenji, yet avoided me like the plague. The words "I'm getting older" kept echoing in my ears. I am 6 years older than her, and she must look down on me. Someone like me, born into obscurity, unloved by my parents, and covered in scars, has no right to be liked by her. But Song Yenji is not qualified either, so I asked His Majesty to send him to the military camp for training, only to be overheard by Yunrong. She must be very angry with me. Upon learning that she was publicly selecting male companions, my heart ached, yet I also felt a sense of relief. As long as she does not abandon me, I am willing to coexist peacefully with those charming men. I thought I could be more magnanimous than anyone else, but when I saw her with others, I still found it hard to control myself. Having followed the rules for over 20 years, I never thought I would one day dress up as a courtesan to offer myself to the one I love. Fortunately, all misunderstandings have been cleared up. It turns out that during all these years I secretly liked her. She also admired me because of my avoidance and cowardice. We missed out on so many years together. Fortunately, everything is still in time. The bright moon at the horizon will eventually be embraced. After hearing the stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.